That Don't Sound Right is a podcast about talking the way we did before the internet, when you could not prove anyone right or wrong.
All the expertise was contained in the people involved with the conversation. I'm Peter.
I'm Cecil, and I hope you enjoy our conversations. And as you listen, if you find yourself silently saying, "That don't sound right," send us a comment. You're one of us. That was a bad toe.
That's all you wanted was a bad toe.
Right. That was a noble dream for a young man to have a bad toe.
That's right.
I just want to build it out of milk jugs and plywood.
Hey, Cecil.
Hey, Peter.
How's it going?
Man, we're here right before the 4th.
I'm telling you, man. And, I'm getting ready to head down to Mississippi.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going to see my in-laws. They all live down there in Jackson, Mississippi.
We be near the Mississippi River?
Well, just about an hour away. The nearest town is Vicksburg, which, for the longest time did not celebrate the 4th of July.
Really?
Yes, because that's when the city fell during the Civil War.
Really?
So they stopped celebrating for a while.
You ever been on the mighty Mississippi?
I haven't. I've seen it. Going there, but I've never been on it. It just reminds me of that podcast we did, the subject we did a couple.
Oh, the Great Loop.
The Great Loop. How fun would that be?
Well, I thought it would be fun as a kid too.
Yeah.
And so I don't know where I got this idea from. Now, the listeners are going to think I got it from Huckleberry Finn or some such book, but I don't think it was that. There was a story I heard as a kid. Mm-hmm. About a life on a raft on the Mississippi River,
all right.
Which again sounds like Huckleberry Finn, but I don't think that's where I got it from. So I had a best friend when I was little.
All right.
He was the first other little kid I ever met, and he was a great friend, still is a good friend. And
does he listen to the podcast?
I don't know if he listens to the podcast. As I mentioned in the last episode, if you're from my past and you know I have a podcast, then you tend to not listen to it. So I told him, or we had both read this story about life on the river on a raft.
All right.
Now, keep in mind, we're pretty young. I think we're like 7, 8, 9,
all right.
somewhere in that. Well, maybe just at the beginning of maybe we're 6th grade. We're pretty young though.
Okay.
So we come up with an idea for a raft, and this was our idea, and it was to collect as many milk jugs as we could find, and then tie them under a piece of plywood to create a raft.
So I can already imagine what your backyard looks like now.
Yeah,
after some time.
Right. Well, my mom has a funny story where she saw this kid coming across the church parking lot just carrying a whole bag full of milk jugs, wondering where he was going, and she was actually headed toward my mom. And she's like, "Why are you giving me those?" She's like, "Well, Cecil told the youth group to collect milk jugs."
Oh, my.
So we collected milk jugs, and these are the old ones where you could, you would screw the cap on the milk jug instead of having the pop-up thing like that.
Oh, right.
So it would seal.
Yeah.
So we collected milk jugs, and I forget how many we got. Enough to cover the bottom of a standard piece of plywood.
That's a 4 foot by 8 foot.
8 foot, right. So we get all these milk jugs together. We get them over to...
That's got to be close to 50 milk jugs.
We get them over to my buddy's house. And then we find long poles, like long sticks, because he had a very wooded area that he lived in. And we strung the milk jugs on there through the handles onto the sticks.
All right.
So we had several rows of sticks with milk jugs on them. And then we would take rope and U-nails or staples, big nail staples, and attached them to the piece of plywood.
Sounds like you're on your way.
Yeah. And then we put all that on a wagon.
All right.
And there was a pond next to his house.
Oh, so this was a test run.
So after we got all this stuff nailed down, our dads, we talked them into letting us now take this contraption, 50 yards down the road to the pond.
So what was this? How'd this conversation go?
What's that?
With the dads.
I think it took a little convincing that we were going to do this, but we're pretty. They were on board once we started nailing stuff to the plywood.
Y'all are very motivated.
Yeah. So we get it. So there's a picture. We'll put this up on the Instagram site. A picture of us with the inverted raft making its way down to the pond.
Oh, my word.
And this is it's not even a farm pond. It's a pond in the community. And so we get down to the pond, and we flip this thing over, like I was saying. And so we're out on the raft. One of the dads has the rope in his hand, and they've allowed us to kind of drift out into the pond.
So what means of locomotion do you have?
We have paddles.
Okay.
So we got paddles from a canoe or something. But you can't paddle a piece of plywood.
It's difficult to lean
Right.
over the edge of a piece of plywood.
Right. You couldn't get close enough to the edge to paddle it without. And at this point, we're out a little ways. We're trying to get situated to figure out how to paddle it. One of the sticks breaks loose, and so part of the raft goes under at that point.
One of the sticks that's holding
Right.
the jugs together.
Right.
It breaks off the plywood.
Right, breaks loose.
Okay.
It loses its moorings from under the plywood and drifts off. And so there's actually a picture of one of the milk jugs way out in the middle of the pond, from away from the raft.
You've lost 13% of your buoyancy.
Right. So there's one of it goes under, and so we're begging to stay out to continue the test. But they're starting to kind of inch the rope back into there. But our dream was, that we'd create this raft that was
Right.
big enough to support a cabin on it, a small
cabin?
cabin that we could, make our way down the Mississippi River or the
All
Neuse
right.
River or some river, out into the ocean and be free, on this adventure. But our early experiments showed that we needed better fasteners.
You
than
had
we
more work to do.
Right. And then it kind of died out after that. We never had a 2.0 version of the raft.
My son, he's just a year out of college, and he had a similar dream. He wanted to float down the Yadkin River. So he started collecting pallets.
Yes.
And what else did he want to get? Oh, old rain barrels, or barrels that people would normally use for rain barrels. He had this dream of creating a raft. Really just one of those double pallets, maybe
Yeah.
two of those,
Yeah.
and strapping some 55-gallon drums. And he and his friend had this dream of at least floating down the Yadkin River.
That's all. That's exactly what we had. It must be a common thread there that boys want to float down a river and make it to the ocean.
That goes, like you said, it goes back to the Great Loop.
Right.
And I have a similar dream, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in a raft. I'd like to have a gasoline motor propelling me, or diesel motor propelling me around.
Yeah. This was. I don't know where I got that from, but I had my big dream was to have the raft, like you're saying, like the one your son's talking about building,
Yeah.
big enough
Yeah.
to kind of live on.
That's basically a houseboat.
Yeah, basically a houseboat. I saw an inflatable one the other day where everything was inflatable.
Even the house part?
The house part and everything.
It was an inflatable houseboat.
It was an inflatable raft.
I'm going to have to stop you right there and say that don't sound
That don't sound right. It was like on an Instagram thing, and the platform was inflatable, and then they inflated the little house on it, and it had an inflatable bed.
Was it for full-size people?
Yeah.
Not
It's
kids.
full-size
This
people.
was one not for.
I don't think you maneuvered it. You just kind of had it out on the water, and if you want to go anywhere, that had a little inflatable, Zodiac boat that was with it.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Yeah. This was just kind of for living in one spot.
I see.
I didn't
Just
check out that dream.
with something that's inflatable, I would think you'd want to be able to direct it in the right location.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the problems with the milk jug raft.
What's that?
You couldn't direct it.
I'm surprised you didn't have poles.
That would have been good.
Could you stand up on it? Was it
No,
stand
they wouldn't
up?
let us stand up. We asked to stand up, and the people that were running the test with us would not allow us to stand up. But that was what I dreamed of, was standing up
Right,
on there and
pulling
poling down the river,
right.
and we never got that far.
Man, that's how Huck Finn did it.
Yeah, but then we lost our milk jugs anyway, so we were going under pretty quick at that point, or at least part of the raft was.
I've been canoeing on the James River, and sometime in early or late spring they have this thing called the Bateau Festival. Mm-hmm. Have we talked about the bateaus?
No.
Bateaus are a small barge. They're they must be about 10 feet wide and 20 foot long. I mean, they're pretty big. You can get a lot of people on these bateaus. And it goes back to the days of going down a river and then in a canal being towed by a donkey. But they have this Bateau Festival on the James River. Everyone brings their vintage, old bateau, homemade bateaus. I mean, these things they weigh a lot. They have to come in on a trailer. And they're big enough where people are having a barbecue on there.
Really?
They've got the gas grill going. There's smoke and there's music. They're dancing. I mean, maybe they're bigger than 10 by 20, but they're pretty big.
Wow. That's all I was trying to build was a bateau.
That's all you wanted was a bateau.
Right. That was a noble dream for a young man to have a bateau.
That's right.
I just want to build it out of milk jugs and plywood.
Well, maybe when I take my boat down the Mississippi River doing the Great Loop, you can join me.
Yeah, that would be great.
So you can float down. We'll turn the motor off. Just float.
Just float.
See what happens.
I have been down the Mississippi partway.
Oh, you have been on it?
Yeah, I've been on it in a paddle boat.
Oh, really? From where? Out of
New Orleans.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just a tourist trap kind of.
Some gambling going on?
No.
Okay.
There was some drinking going on.
All right.
I was not a drinker, but yeah, it was just a little. They kind of took you up the river a little way. You saw basically some refineries and that sort of stuff, and then they spun it around and came back down. Have you ever taken the water taxi in Savannah?
No. What is that?
Just there's an island right across from Savannah, and to get from the hotel over to the downtown area, you have to take a water taxi.
Oh, really? No, I've never done that.
But that's a big river right there.
Okay.
I guess this is the Savannah River.
Probably, yeah.
And it's quite a little adventure to go across that river on that water taxi.
It's kind of a rough ride.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's not a placid little...
It's not like the river. It's not like the water taxi at Walt Disney World.
No.
Going across the
No. They have to know what they're doing and kind of fight their way across and fight their way back across.
Well, that's what I always wondered about the Mississippi is how you navigate that with all the weird currents that are going on.
It was just a little bit I was on it. It's a big, powerful river. I mean, it's nothing to mess around with. Yeah, one night I was at a camp. It was Camp Cole. It's on the Paquemmons River. It was right where it goes into the Albemarle Sound, or the Palico Sound. And it's probably, I don't know, I won't say it's a mile across. I mean, the Mississippi River is mile wide in places, right?
A mile wide? Mm-hmm. I don't know if it is.
Really?
I mean, if it would be, it'd be down near where New Orleans is.
Yeah.
But you could see it wasn't a mile wide down there, was it?
You could see the other bank.
Yeah.
But the Paquemmons River it wasn't as wide as the Mississippi at New Orleans, but it's a wide river. I mean, it's a long way across. And me and a guy thought about canoeing across it one night. But this would be like canoeing across a major shipping river.
Right.
And we thought we'd do it's like pick a point of light out and then come back across. And we decided at the last minute not to do that. Yeah. I would look back on that decision. I'm like, why was I considering that? And thank God I didn't do it.
Now I think of it, I have done something like that. So
did you do it?
We did it.
Oh.
So this was on the Magathie River in Maryland, where I grew up.
Okay. You paddled across it?
We didn't paddle across it. There was an island in the middle.
Yeah.
And we decided to take this dilapidated rowboat, the four of us, across, and we were going to go over there and spend the night on the island.
Right.
So we get in the boat and we start paddling, and then the oarlock breaks. And we're actually we first start rowing.
Right.
And then it breaks, and now we have to resort to paddling.
Right.
And paddling a rowboat with an oar is no bueno.
Right.
No fun. But we get in the middle of the river, and we're thinking, a boat, I mean, it's a pretty busy river.
Right.
But it is late at night. It's like 9 or 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
But, a boat cruising up the river would not even see us and completely plaster us.
Yeah.
And then, just as we're thinking that, we see a boat coming.
Yeah.
And then we start paddling hard.
Yeah. That's what we're saying. So this is where they do actually like they're shipping on this river on the Paquemmons.
All right, yeah.
There's some big boats together, and like you said, at night they would never ever see you.
No,
they wouldn't even hear you. They wouldn't feel you.
You'd be a goner.
Yeah. There'd just be a thunk, and that would be it.
I forgot what river it was down in Florida. We would go to when I was visiting some family in Pensacola. We went to this one river. I think because we would water ski on it. I wouldn't. I was a little kid, but sometimes a big boat would come up the river, and before the boat would even get to you, the level of the river would drop 3 to 4 feet.
Oh, really?
The water would just rush away from you. Go down. It would just go down the bank.
Right.
Because the boat coming up the river is sucking so much water underneath of it.
Yeah.
And then when it goes by you, then there's this huge wave and it all returns.
Yeah, that's what I think people that don't live near big rivers don't realize.
They don't understand that. And so, that's the whole thing about, I don't care if you're in a raft or in a regular boat doing the Mississippi, one of those barges comes up. I mean, what does that do to you?
Right.
How do you get around it?
The displacement of those things has just got to be humongous.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to do a little more research. I know I'm going to have to do a little more research on how to drive a boat in the Mississippi when a barge comes upon.
So, that's, like, again, if you grow up around small river, you grew up around, like, the Yadkin, and the Yadkin's a powerful river. I mean, it's got a heavy current in it.
Yeah.
But you see these smaller rivers, and you're like, people can still get hurt on them, but people are familiar with that. But if you don't go to, like, where the Paquimans dumps into the Sound, or where one of these rivers dumps in the Sound, or the Mississippi River, I mean, they are big and they are dangerous, and there's a lot of current on them.
Oh yeah.
And you've got to know what you're doing to just like that war taxi. That guy's got to know what you can't just spear it across the river and come back. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, my father-in-law, he grew up in the Delta of Mississippi, and they would go exploring around on the other side of the levee. And I asked him, did y'all play in the river? You go swimming? He's like, oh no, you don't mess with the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
You don't get in that river.
Right.
There's all kinds of weird stuff going on. Currents and debris in that river.
Right.
It put a hurting on you.
Yeah. Well, just imagine even just some of the logs and stuff that could come through.
Yeah.
My dad worked in a mill up in Washington State, and just a river big enough to carry logs down it like that. That's a big, powerful river.
That's a lot of water moving.
And then just to get entrapped by one of those logs, it's just dangerous.
You'd be a goner.
That brings us to our words of wisdom.
Oh yeah.
It comes from a rafting company.
All right.
That I was with one time, and they were describing. You had to wear your life jacket.
Right.
It's a bright orange life jacket.
The bright orange ones?
Yeah. Do you have a comment about bright orange life jacket?
Yeah, so there's two things I decided as an adult I don't do anymore.
What's that?
So there's two things as an adult. The first thing is I don't ride school buses anymore. I'm an adult. I don't have to ride a school bus. If I have to ride a school bus, I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to drive.
Right.
All right, that's the first thing.
All right.
The second thing is I don't wear those orange life jackets.
The ones that kind of snap in the front.
Yeah. And they're rectangular, except for the hole in the middle for your noggin.
Yeah.
So what's the deal with so what's the word?
Well, the guy said the words of wisdom were they don't save your life, they just make you easier to find.
And that's why I don't wear them.
Right. What do you wear?
Oh, I've purchased a vest.
Oh, vest. Yeah.
Right. So when I'm canoeing, if I go in someone else's canoe, I'm bringing my vest.
The only thing about the vest is you don't have the nice headrest of the big orange one where you can kind of lay your head back on that.
That's the risk I'll take.
All right. Well, y'all have reached the end of another That Don't Sound Right.
Some people are saying that don't sound right.
Yep. Again, please post us on your social media.
Yes, and if you want to leave us a comment or send us an email, we're at tdsrpodcast @gmail.com. We're also at tdsrpodcast on Instagram.
And we're on Facebook.
Feel free to spread the word about our podcast and let them know how much you enjoy it.
Until then, keep talking.
And stay curious.